Welcome back. This is Now. We're live in studio. And have you ever wondered where you came from, your ancestry? I see all these ads on the international cable channels, and I always wonder, can I do that? I don't know if they have our information. Is there anyone in Trinidad and Tobago who does that? So I was really excited to receive information from UWI, the UWI St. Augustine campus, about a genetic ancestry mapping in Trinidad and Tobago. So of course we had to bring Dr. Dexter Hadley on set. Good morning.
Good morning.
And welcome home. Because you're one of the trainees doing great things outside. Congratulations to you. So you're assistant professor at the Baca Computational Health Sciences Institute, the University of California, correct. Silicon Valley. Exactly. Yes. Tell us about how does this work, genetic ancestry mapping, and how it pertains to Trinidad and Tobago.
Right. So as you mentioned, there's a lot of companies that are doing ancestry mapping today in the world.
Yeah.
Ancestry.com has been doing it probably for 20 years.
Yes.
23andMe is a Silicon Valley-based one, has been doing it maybe for 10 years. But there's a long tail in their distribution, maybe 10 or 15 companies are doing this. But not one of them is focused on our region.
That's why I don't even bother, because I went home once and I said, you know, this doesn't make sense to me, so I just quit. But I'm so excited. Does this mean that we can now do it here for the people of Trinidad and Tobago? Absolutely.
So the technology has been commoditized to do this for a while.
Yes.
Right? So the same kits that Ancestry.com uses and 23andMe uses the same kits that anybody can use. They're all bought from the same supplier.
Right.
What is the interpretation of that data is really where the secret is and where the magic is.
And that's where we're at now.
And that's where we would like to be at.
Okay.
Right? Most of the data that has been generated has been in Europe and in America, in Caucasian populations, which is not much help to either you or myself.
But what if your ancestry actually goes back there, given the dynamics of the Caribbean and the slave trade and, you know, the Europeans, colonizers who were here? Does that have any sort of implications for us, or it doesn't cross over?
Absolutely, there's implications, but the majority of ancestry is definitely not from Europe, as far as all people go. The majority of ancestry is actually life evolved out of Africa.
Right.
Right. So one of the most important reasons to go after populations like us that also have strong African roots is that the patterns of genetic variation that we find apply to everybody, including Europeans, as opposed to vice versa. Right. So to get to Europe, there was a lot of selection. People to come out of Africa into Europe.
Yes.
Many people didn't survive, and only the ones that survived got into Europe. So there was a huge population bottleneck in Europeans and Chinese and in everybody except the Africans, right? So the point is, we need to be studying more ancestral genetics than Europe, i.e. Africa,
right.
Because the lessons we learn from those, from studying Africans apply to everybody. And that's the only race that applies to.
Yes, yes. So what does it mean for Trinidad and Tobago?
Well, ancestry is just the beginning, right? So I just do something called precision medicine, right? Which is basically using your DNA and your RNA and very highly sensitive and specific tests for disease. For instance, in Trinidad and Tobago, you could show up to the doctor, fever, chills, and, you know, body aches. Is it dengue? Is it the flu? Is it the cold? Or is it any number of infections?
Yeah.
Precision medicine will tell you exactly which one it is.
Is that right?
That is the goal, right? You take a little blood sample or a little spit sample or urine sample, you run a test, and you have a whole lot more details about what is causing those symptoms.
And is it linked to ancestry?
It is not specific. Well, it is in a sense, meaning African Americans have different causes of hypertension than Caucasian Americans.
Right.
So just knowing, let's take Trinidad and Tobago again, for instance. So Africans in Trinidad have different rates of high blood pressure and heart disease than Indians. So my question is, what about the Douglas?
Right.
What side of the equation do they fall? We don't know. Nobody knows. So we would.
So is this the research that you all are doing now?
Absolutely. So it starts with ancestry.
Right.
It's all the same technology. You measure the DNA. You can look at our ancestors, for sure. You can also look at disease just as well. We are not at that stage as yet. We're going to start out with Ancestry. We have a study that we're going to tell the population about tonight, 6 p.m. Daga Hall at UE.
Is it open to everyone?
Open to everybody.
Right.
That was your first question Trinidadians asked me. How much is it? It's open means it's free.
Free. Right?
Correct.
And you're going to be talking about tonight?
Yes, so I'm going to be talking about my work in medicine. I'm a medical doctor. I don't practice medicine, but...
As well as a PhD?
As well as a research scientist, correct.
Right,
So I'm going to be talking about my work in drug discovery, how genetics works, how the ancestry mapping works, and sort of the implications and the importance of doing that in Trinidad and Tobago.
Right, so we look forward to that. It's the genetic ancestry mapping in Trinidad and Tobago, open public lecture and panel discussion, and there will be a number of other professors and doctors on the panel to talk about genetic ancestry mapping in Trinidad and Tobago. Very interesting topic. My guest this morning is Dr. Hadley, assistant professor from the Baca Computational Health Sciences Institute, University of California, San Francisco, but also a son of the soil. Very happy to have him here on the program. Remember, it's this evening, 6 to 8 p.m. at the Daga Auditorium. Thank you very much for coming on the program.
Appreciate it.
Carrie, what's happening on your neck of the woods across there on the desk?
Well, before we go into that, you know, what you're doing, Doctor, is very, very interesting. And I've wondered for years, you know, about the lineage, you know, that I personally came from, and, you know, the history of that and all. And what you're doing and the studies that you're involved in, you know, it really gives or the opportunity that, well, Trinbagonians, Caribbean people would not necessarily have had, you know, with the foreign things like
Ancestry.com.
Ancestry.com. Yeah, I don't know if I can say it.
Yeah. I know where this question is going. This is like, can we test? As it stands now, can both of us test and see our lineage?
As it stands now, you're going to have to come to UE tonight to find out.
I like that.
Good one. Carrie. Yes.